Meta tier lists are an essential part of gaming culture. No matter what game you find yourself playing, someone's gonna be out there making a tier list of all the meta characters from S down to F tier. And Deadlock is no exception. There are plenty of big content creators out there like Metro and Vegas that regularly publish tier lists sharing their opinions on the meta. But you'll notice that here on this channel, well, there are no such meta tier lists to be found. Sometimes I'll do a silly tier list, like my waifu tier list a couple of months back, but, well, I don't really do meta tier lists, even though some people probably wish that I would. So in this video, I want to talk about why I don't do meta tier lists, and why I generally just don't like tier lists as a format for talking about the power levels of various characters. So the first and biggest reason why I don't like tier lists is because they just lack so much nuance, and in a game such as Deadlock, nuance really is everything. It doesn't matter if you're playing an S tier character, there are so many other things in a match besides your character choice that can go wrong and cause you to lose the game, like your macro, your comms, your coordination. All of that stuff really doesn't have anything to do with the character you choose, and it plays, arguably, an even bigger role in whether you win the match than which character you picked. And no matter what the meta characters are, the characters that you're actually going to do well with are going to vary drastically depending on who's playing them. For example, Viscus is, well, not really a meta character right now as far as I can tell from all these other people's tier lists, but a Viscus one-trick is still going to make him look like one of the most busted characters in the entire game. Conversely, a lot of people think Mina is broken right now, and, well, that's certainly true. If you put me on Mina, I'm gonna make her look like a D-tier trash character. I can't play her to save my life. Furthermore, matchups actually matter quite a lot, and even a character that's strong can still struggle if they just happen to be playing against a bunch of characters that have some kind of natural counter for them. For example, Lash is really good, but he gets completely shut down if there's a dynamo on the enemy team because he can just quantum entanglement every single thing that Lash tries to do, especially his ultimate. His ultimate basically just doesn't exist when dynamo's around. And also, if you're playing Abrams and Abrams is strong, he's still going to struggle if the enemies just have a lot of flying characters that he can't shoulder charge easily, even with a Phantom Strike. But also, I am of the opinion that Deadlock is ultimately designed in a way where every character can be really strong if you play them smartly, and because of that, well, yes, some characters are always going to be a little stronger than others depending on the numbers, but also, you can make a really strong case for just about any character in this game being A tier if you know how to build them right and you put them in the hands of someone who's really good at them. And I feel like this is more so the case in Deadlock than in other, especially more class-based games, because Deadlock gives you so much more agency to counterplay the enemies through the item shop and other means, and it also gives you a lot of ways to catch up if you're behind. And so, while yes, there are certainly power dynamics in this game, I don't feel that they have ever been as severe as the character imbalance that can exist in some other games. Now, tier lists can be okay at finding outliers, characters that are way too strong and characters that are way too weak, especially if you notice a theme among multiple people's tier lists. But otherwise, for the vast majority of characters, there just kind of isn't really a point to making a tier list. Like, what's it matter the order of the characters in B tier? They're all just kind of okay? Why do we really need to bring them into the discussion? I'd rather just discuss those one or two heroes that are too strong or too weak and just kind of avoid the whole tier list concept outright, especially because you can get into more detail if you limit the scope to just a few characters on the outliers. My next criticism of the tier list format is that a lot of tier lists really aren't applicable to much of the player base. For example, if you take a look at some of the top level streamers who make tier lists, their tier lists are usually focused around Eternus or Eternus 6 plus matches, and the meta up there is going to be completely and utterly different to what you see down in Emissary or lower. And in some cases, this can create a lot of dissonance between the people making the tier list and the people actually watching the tier list. For example, if you tell someone who's mid to low elo that Graves is the worst character in the game, they're probably going to scratch their head and look at you like you're a little nutty. Surely she's at least like B tier minimum, right? And also, if you tell someone who's in the lower rank ranks that Mina is S tier broken, they also might be a little confused, because Mina is, at the end of the day, a pretty difficult character to play. She is not easy, she requires pretty good mechanics and pretty good macro. A lot of tier lists cater to a certain demographic, and that's absolutely okay, but you can't really take a tier list and apply it to the entire player base. The third reason why I don't really like tier lists is because they often don't line up with the actual real data of how strong each character is. A very good statistic to look at when determining the strength of a character is how often they are able to win. Are they winning statistically more matches than the average character, less matches, or are they about even? And oftentimes, the win rate that you see from a website like StatLocker just completely does not align with the rating that someone gives a character in a tier list. And that's always been a disconnect that has kind of confused me because, well, the numbers are right here. If a character is winning a lot, are they not strong? I feel like that's a decent way to go about making a tier list. And you can even sort by the higher ranks to see what characters are winning a lot. Now, obviously, you also have to look at a character's pick rate. If a character has a high win rate but a low pick rate, they probably shouldn't still be at the top of S tier because there's only a select few people actually making them work. But still, like, for example, Venator is, I would say, objectively the worst character in the game right now because at every single rank, his win rate is in the toilet. 44.2% win rate at Eternus 4+. If we go by Eternus 6, oh, guess what? He's also got a terrible win rate. If we go by just regular Eternus, he's also got a terrible win rate. If we go to all ranks, whoa, wouldn't you believe it? He's got the worst win rate in the game. And yet, when I look at some tier lists that other people are making, he's put in like B or A tier, and that just, it feels like a very staggering disconnect to me. Because at the end of the day, while there is nuance and there are strengths to every character, as I talked about earlier in this video, there is still just the cold hard data, and if a character is losing more often than they're winning, it's usually a sign that they're not that great, at least for the general population. Now, in tournaments and scrims, it's going to probably be completely different, but at least for the average player playing Deadlock, I mean, this is this is the data that we have to see, and it's clear that some characters are doing really good, and other characters are just not winning as many matches as they should be. Now, the fourth reason is kind of a bit silly, I will admit, but it is something that I consider as a content creator, and it's the fact that, well, whenever I've published meta tier lists in the past for, Paladins, the game that I played previously, I always got so much disagreement and backlash, even when I tried to make my tier lists as well thought out as I could. And no doubt, every other content creator experiences the same thing. You go to Metro's tier list, you're going to find people disagreeing. You go to Vegas's tier list, you're going to find people disagreeing. And it's absolutely fair to disagree on these things because, again, regarding the nuance, every character can be really good if you're good at them and you play them smartly. And so, I just really don't like having to deal with the hassle of that. Maybe it's just really easy to bruise my ego, but I don't like having a bunch of comments being like, wow, this tier list is stupid, worst tier list I've ever seen. Which literally happens every single time I make a tier list, even if it's a more silly tier list, like the waifu tier list. And furthermore, personally, I just don't really feel that qualified to make a meta tier list because, well, I try to just play this game for the love of the game, just to have fun, and a lot of the times I am not even playing remotely close to a meta build. I'm not an Eternus 6 player, I'm just a regular Eternus player, and so, like, there is actually quite a big disconnect even within the subdivisions of Eternus. And apart from the very obvious outliers of any given meta, I find it very difficult to rate certain characters above or below certain other characters because I just think of all the ways that each and every character in the game has dominated a lobby at one point or another. I would rather just not publish a tier list video, avoid all the inevitable backlash, and also avoid potentially misleading people or upsetting people with opinions that, well, are my opinions, but are not necessarily congruent with the facts, especially if I deviate from, like the win rates of certain characters that I mentioned earlier. But if I were to make a tier list just exclusively off of win rate, then I wouldn't really be making content because I would just be regurgitating what StatLocker says, and that's just not good either. At the end of the day, I would prefer my approach to content to just be more nuanced, and I would rather just dive into more detail on one or two particular characters in a video, instead of trying to make a holistic tier list that covers every single character in the game that I just know is going to upset some people and give me a bunch of comments that I have to read that are just going to make me feel just kind of icky on a particular day. It's just not really been a fun experience historically, even though it does get a lot of views, and so, yeah, it's just a decision that I've made that I don't really want to make meta tier lists like that at this time. I would rather just leave that to other content creators who are bolder than I am and better equipped to make a tier list video. But anyways, what do you think about tier lists? Let me know in the comments section down below. I think it's very obviously a flawed format, and while they are a good bit of fun at the end of the day, I just don't think they're a particularly good metric for determining the strength of various characters in the meta, apart from identifying a few similar outliers that keep popping up across various people's tier lists. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, of course, make sure to drop a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on future videos from me. And with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.